आद्यस्य नः कुलपतेर्वकुलाभिरामं श्रीमत्तदङ्घ्रियुगलं प्रणमामि मूर्धना भूतं सरश्च महदाह्वयभट्टनाथ श्रीभक्तिसार कुलशेखर योगिवाहान् भक्ताङ्घ्रिरेणुपरकाल यतीन्द्रमिश्रान् श्रीमत्पराङ्कुशमुनिं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम्। कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम्। वाल्मीकिर्मुनिसिंहस्य कवितावनचारिणः शृण्वन् रामकथानादं कुनयाति परां गतिं वेदवेदे परे पुंसि जाते दशरथात्मजे वेदः प्राचेतसादासीत् साक्षात् रामायणात्मना अंजनानंदनं वीरं जानकी शोकनाशनं कपीशमक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लंका भयंकरं मनोजवं मारुततुल्यवेगं जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शिरसा नमामि। आञ्जनेयमदिपाठलाननं काञ्चनाद्रिकमनीयविग्रहं पारिजाततरुमूलवासिनं भावयामि पवमाननन्दनं। यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारि परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकं। नमस्तदसे। This day being a very auspicious day, being a Sunday, Ravivaram, this day has been chosen for being the last day in the series of Srimad Ramayana Navaham, where Rama comes in the some more chairs. Okay, so they need to put some extra chairs. So let Surya wait for some time.
Also, some of the youngsters, please come and sit in the ground over here in the front, so that when the elders come, they can sit.
See, some of the youngsters may not be used to sitting on the floor. Even if you extend your legs and sit, I have no problem.
Also, when we say youngsters, we don't mean biologically. We mean those who are young at heart, who can take the risk and sit on the floor.
Yeah. There are some empty chairs in the middle. You can fill them up and keep the last few rows empty. It's easier because if somebody comes in the front and walks, "Avadi Papa, Mama Minnal."
ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೋಬೇಡ ಅಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಮಂಡಿ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಆಯ್ತು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು
No, Sridhar, I've turned it off. Sridhar, I've turned it off.
ஓங்கி உலகளந்த புத்தமன் பேர் படி நாங்கள் நம் பார்வைக்கு சாற்று நீராடினால் தீங்கின்றி நாடெல்லாம் திங்கள் மும்மாறி பெய்து ஓங்கு பெரும் சென்னல் உடுகையள் புகழ புங்குவளை போதில் பொறிவண்டு கண்படுப்ப தேங்கதே புக்கிருந்து சீர்த்த முலை பற்றி வாங்க கூடம் நிறைக்கும் வள்ளல் பெரும் பசுக்கள் நீங்காத செல்வம் நிறைந்து. In Sanatana Dharma, there is a belief that when there is a yajnam happening, be it a yajnam through Agni or a Shravana yajnam such as this, and in the middle if it stops, then to resume it you will have to invoke Trivikrama and start. So when a yajnam stops, we say Trini Padani Vichakrame Tredani Dadhe Padam, and then we begin. Or a Tamil Pasuram which invokes Trivikrama. So that's the custom. This day being a very auspicious day, because it is a Ravivaram, Rama comes in the lineage of Surya. It is Surya Vamsham. And the one who blessed Sri Rama during his internship days, the 6 nights, was Rishi Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra is the one who could see Gayatri Mahamantram through his eyes. Remember, it is often said Vishwamitro Rishihi when we invoke Gayatri Mantra. It doesn't mean Vishwamitra invented Gayatri Mantra. Vishwamitra could discover Gayatri Mantra, which was already there. He was a Mantra Drashta. He could see the Mantram through his eyes. So, the Gayatri, which is a format, Gayatri is a Chandas. It is a meter. Any meter which has 24 aksharams in it is Gayatri. Gayatri Chandasam Mata. 3/4 of Anushtup is Gayatri. 32 letters make Anushtup Chandas. We have Vishnu Sahasranamam largely in Anushtup Chandas. It has 32 letters. 3/4 of that, which is 8 into 3, 24 letters, is Gayatri Mantram. So Gayatri is a meter. There is a Gayatri for every Devata. The Gayatri invoking the grace of the sun, Surya, is called Surya Gayatri, which is also called Savitri. This Gayatri Mantram, which begins with, how does it begin? Huh? Bhur, right? Bhut Bhuva Swaha is an introduction to the mantra. Mantram doesn't begin there. It begins with Tat Sa. That is Gayatri. From there only the count begins. So while Valmiki was a lot perplexed about what should be done when Rama himself has abandoned his pregnant wife Sita in the forest, day 1, last Saturday, August 6th, at about 4:10 p.m., I spoke about how Narada comes and answers the questions raised by Valmiki, and later, after uttering the curse on the hunter, Manishadayat Pratishthantvam, Brahma comes and says, no, you will be blessed with the sight to see what has happened in Rama's life, whatever is known to the general public and which has also not caught the eyes of the general public. Rahasyam cha prakasham cha. At that point in time, Brahma Patni, Saraswati and Savitri also come. Savitri says, Valmiki, I shall be present in the manuscript that you write. So that Savitri, who is Surya Gayatri, who is Tatsaviturvarenyam, has 24 letters. So even without the knowledge of Valmiki, Savitri was able to bless her every letter in Srimad Ramayana. So the first letter of the first verse of every set of 1,000 verses, when you put together, you get Gayatri Mantra. So Srimad Ramayanam is essentially a pramanam which has Gayatri Mantram embedded in it. So the compilation of the shlokas that determine Gayatri Mantram is called Gayatri Ramayanam. But do not get confused, this Gayatri Ramayanam is not something which was composed by someone. It is the same shlokas chosen from Valmiki's Ramayanam. Now I shall recite Gayatri Mantram through Ramayanam here. Tapaswadhyaya niratam tapasvi vagvidamvaram naradam paripapracha Valmikir munipungavam. This is shloka number 1. It begins with Ta. 1001th shloka is Sahatva Rakshasan Sarvan Yagnagnan Raghunandanaha Rishibhir Pujita Samyag Yathendro Vijayi Pura. It begins with Sa. Previous one was Ta. Now this is Sa. Tat Sa. Next. Vishwamitrastu dharmatma Shrutva Janaka Bhashitam Vatsarama Dhanuf Pashya Idiraghavam Abravid. This begins with V. This is 2001th shloka. Tat Sa Vi. Next, we have 3001th shloka. Tushtavasya tada vamsham pravishya cha vishampatehe shayaniyam narendrasya tada sadhya vyatishthata tu. Tat Sa Vi Tu. It goes on. Vanavasam hi sankhya vasamsya bharanani cha bhartaramanu sita ishvashuro dadau va. Raja satyam cha dharmascha raja kulavatam kulam raja mata pita chaiva raja hidakaro nrinam ra. Nirikshya samuhurtam tu dadarsha bharato gurum utaje ramamasinam jata mandaladharinam ni. Yadi buddhi krita drashtum agastyam tam mahamunim adyaiva gamane buddhim rojayasva mahayashaha ya भरतस्यार्य पुत्रस्य श्वश्रूणा मम च प्रभो मृगरूपमिदं व्यक्तं विस्मयं जनयिष्यति गच्छ शीघ्रमितो राम सुग्रीवं तं महाबलं वयस्यं तं कुरुं क्षिप्रम् इतो गत्वाद्य राघव देशकालो प्रतीक्षस्व क्षममाणः प्रिया प्रियौ सुखदुःखसह काले सुग्रीव वशगो भवद् वन्द्यास्ते तु तपःसिद्धा तपसा भीतकल्मषाः प्रष्टव्या चापि सीतायाः प्रवृत्तिं विनयान्वितैः वा स निर्जित्य पुरीं श्रेष्ठां लङ्कां तां कामरूपिणीं विक्रमेण महातेजा हनुमान् मारुतात्मजः स धन्याः देवास गन्धर्वा सिद्धाश्च परमर्षयः मम पश्यन्ति ये नाथं रामं राजीवलोचनं मङ्गलाभिमुखी तस्य सा तदासीन् महाकपेः उपतस्थे विशालाक्षी प्रयताः व्यवाहनं हितं महात्तं मृदुहेतु संहितं व्यतीतकाला यदि सम्प्रतिक्षमं निशम्य तद्वाक्यमुपस्थितज्वरः प्रसङ्गवादान्नुतरमेतदब्रवीत् हि धर्मात्मा रक्षसां श्रेष्ठः सम्प्राप्तोऽयं विभीषणः लङ्कैश्वर्यं ध्रुवं श्रीमान् अयं प्राप्नोत्यकण्टकं यो वज्रपाताशनि सन्निपातं न चुक्षुभेनापि चचाल राजा स रामबाणाभिहतो वृषातश्चचाल चापं च मुमोच वीरः यस्य विक्रममासाद्य राक्षसा निधनं गताः तं मन्ये राघवं वीरं नारायणमनामयं न ते दृष्टशिरे रामं दन्तमरिवाहिनी मोहिता परमास्त्रेण गान्धर्वेण महात्मना न प्रणम्य देवताभ्यश्च ब्राह्मणेभ्यश्च मैथिली बद्धाञ्जलिपुटा चेवमुवाचमग्निसमीपितः चलनात् पर्वतेन्द्रस्य गणादेवाश्च कम्पिताः चचाल पार्वती चापि तदा सृष्टा महेश्वरं च दारापुत्रा पुरं राष्ट्रं भोगाच्छादन भोजनं सर्वमेवाभिवं भक्तं नौ भविष्यति हरीश्वर यामेव रात्रिं शत्रुघ्नः पर्णशालां समाविशत् तामेव रात्रिं सीतापि प्रसूतादारकद्वयं इदं रामायणं कृत्स्नं गायत्री बीजसंयुतं त्रिसन्ध्यं यः पठे नित्यं सर्वपापः प्रमुच्यते सो Gayatri Ramayanam with all the letters in the same order in 24,000 shlokas is a magical feat in Sanatana Dharma. Now in Yuddha Kandam, after Vibhishana Pattabhishekam, the beauty about Vibhishana Pattabhishekam is when Vibhishana reached and sought asylum at the feet of Sri Rama, the first question was, did he come for the Rajyam? Yesterday we have answered that out. He didn't come for the Rajyam. The beauty is, Rama says, Lakshmana, go fetch the oceanic waters. Lakshmana does that. He says, make Vibhishana the king of Lanka now. They were in Bharatadesha. Lakshmana was a bit confused. We have not found a way how to go to Lanka. We do not know whether we will be able to win over Ravana. We do not know what will happen next. But you're asking me to make him the king of Lanka. Well, my brother has said, so I am the Dasa. So he went, brought the oceanic water, sprinkled it on the head of Vibhishana and said, recited the verses saying that he will be the next Abhishikta Raja of Lanka. Now Sugriva had a doubt. He came closer to Rama and said, see, I need to talk to you in private. And he said, see, yesterday this Vibhishana came. He said, what? I have realized my mistake. My brother shouldn't have done this. I advised my brother, but he seems to pay no heed to what I say. So I have come over to your Rajyam. I am seeking asylum at your feet. And you have given Lanka to him. Imagine tomorrow Ravana comes. He says, Swami, I have committed a mistake. You have already given Lanka to Vibhishana. What will you do with Ravana next? He said, don't worry, I will ask Bharata to hand over Ayodhya to him. So now Vibhishana came. Vibhishana Sharanagati was done. Pattabhishekam was also done. The next idea was to take the monkeys across the ocean from Bharatadesham to Lanka. As we understand today, if you know the map of Bharatadesham, as you come down the coast of Odisha, Andhra, and then to the Dravida Desham, which is Tamil Nadu, then as you come down, you come across a very important kshetram called Vedaranyam. That's a very important Shaiva kshetra. You come across Nagapattinam, which is called Shivarajadhani. Those of you who have been learning classical Carnatic music, I'm sure you'll come across Muthuswami Dikshitar's Kriti. Shivarajadhani kshetravasini chidrupa vilasini amba nilayadakshi. Shivarajadhani is Nagapattinam. Below that is Vedaranyam. Much below that is that strategic point in the coast of India, which is in Tamil Nadu, which is very, very close to Lanka. But Rama did not choose that. He went further down to construct the Setu. Why? Because the depth of the oceanic waters between the coast of India and Lanka was so very deep. The depth was so very high that they needed a lot of materials and human effort to fill that depth. Whereas when they reached Pullani, the Kshetram, Tirupullani, construction was a lot more easier because naturally there was an oceanic ridge there between the two countries. There was an inflamed portion of the oceanic bed which was inflamed and swollen. So because of the swollen part, it was a lot more easier to fill that particular gap. So before construction of the bridge, he had to take the Green Tribunal's permission because you're using the aquatic waters. So Varunalayam, the king of the waters, Varuna, is also called the Samudra Raja. So Rama thought, let me go on a Prayopavesham. I shall fast until he gives me clearance. So he sleeps on a bed made of darbha grass. Tatasagara velayam darbhanastirya raghavaha anjalim prangmukha kritva pratishishye mahodade. Anjali. What is Anjali? Oriyali, Rendali? Is that Anjali? So, you put your palms together and this is called Anjali Mudra even in Natya Shastra. Why is it called Anjali? Jalayaditi Anjalihi. See, I generally do Anjali to somebody standing opposite me or to a group of people standing opposite me, either an individual, Ekavachanam or Bahuvachanam. So when an individual or a group stand in front of me and I do Anjali, traditionally and technically, this Hastam says, you are very, very important to me. I shall serve you the way you want. I am your dasa. I am your servant. Dasosmi. Dasasmi. So when the man says dasosmi, in grammar, the lady should say dasasmi. So it's not dasosmi for the woman. It will change. So it's dasasmi. So when you put your palms together and you say either say dasosmi or dasasmi, the person standing opposite us will be made to feel humble. He will feel, oh, this man is so respectful towards me. So he should technically, I'm not speaking realistically, start shedding tears. So tears should start rolling down one's cheeks. When I do this mudra, the person standing opposite me should feel helpless. This man is so humble. So this mudra in me makes the person shed tears. Tear is So, jalayadi, since it makes the person opposite me shed tears, this mudra is called Anjali. So, here Valmiki says, Anjalim prangmukha krutva pratishishye mahodade bahum bhujanga bhogabham upadhaya sa arisudanaha jata rupamayaschaiva bhushanai bhushitam pura. So, as he laid the bed of darbha grass, he is today invoked in that kshetram as Darbha Shayana Rama. Tirupulani is known for two things. One, Darbha Shayana Rama, and the payasam which is made there. So, naturally, automatically, the latter takes prominence in most videos. Well, Rama was lying on the bed of Darbha grass. As per Shastram, I have mentioned, I think on day 3 or day 4, you're not recommended to fast on any day that you like. At times, some people may feel, okay, if my son gets into this particular college, I will fast on every Monday. Very noble thought of yours. But Shastram doesn't recommend that. You have to fast only on Ekadashi. What if I'm not able to fast on Ekadashi? Feast on every day. That is okay, but don't fast. So Rama did something which was not actually adhering to the Shastra. Nevertheless, he was doing it for his beloved Sita. Everything is fair in love, and now there's going to be war as well. So, Kamban, the Tamil poet, tells when Rama was reclining towards the ocean, overlooking the ocean, how was it? So there is one ocean on one side and Rama on the other side. Kamban tells, கருணமங்கையை மீட்பித்து ஓர் நெறி தருக என்னும் பொருள் நயந்து நல்நூல் நெறி அடுக்கிய புல்லில் கருணயம் கடல் கிடந்தனை கருங்கடல் நோக்கி வருண மந்திரம் எண்ணினன் விதிமுறை வணங்கி. So on one side was the ocean, that was saline waters. Oh, samudrasya jalam lavanam. On the other side was not Rama. Kamban tells there was this ocean looking to another ocean. This was an ocean of salty waters, and this is an ocean of immaculate mercy. So he is telling here is the immaculate mercy ocean looking at the salty waters ocean. Which one would you prefer, he asks. Karunayam kadal karungadalai noki kidandadamma. This ocean is looking at the salty waters there. So as Rama did, 3 days, no reply. Similar to the customer support. Tasya ramasya suptasya kushastirne mahitale niyamada pramattasya nishasti stobhi jagmatuhu saratri roshitastatra nayagno. So, ma pramade ma karishihi. He was completely in pramadam. I don't know how many of us use this word. In the South Indian parlance, if the food is exquisite and excellent, if something is beyond what we have imagined, pramadam. But pramadam in Sanskrit means forgetfulness. So imagine you've served somebody with lavish food and at the end of it you ask, how was it? Pramadam. If you're very good at Sanskritam, did I forget something? You should ask. Because only if you forget something, it's called pramadata, pramadam. Pramadam does not mean great. So think about it twice before you use this, after at least this lecture. So, upasata tadaramaha sagaram saritam patim. At that point in time, Rama got really angry. Vibhishana came and said, 3 days is over, sir. Look at the stop clock. It's all done. This man doesn't seem to heed to your request. He's not answering. At that point in time, Rama got really angry. Raktanta lochanaha. The corners of his eyes started getting red. That is when he said, Chabamanaya Saumitre. O Sumitra's son. Saumitre means Sumitra's son. Saumitre technically also applies to. Yeah, if you come only on the 9th day, that's the problem. Shatrugna. So, but Though it may apply to Shatrughna, here it won't, because the one present is only Lakshmana. See, Sindha Desham is around some parts of Rajasthan and Gujarat and large parts of South Pakistan. So that is Sindha Desham. So in those days, horses that were bred in Sindha Desham were regarded as of very, very high caliber. So a horse is referred to as Saindavam. Sindhu means the river as well as the ocean. So that which is a product of the ocean is also Saindhavam. So salt is also called Saindhavam. So the horse is also called Saindhavam. Salt is also called Saindhavam. But if I am eating curd rice and I say bring Saindhavam, you will not bring the horse. So you will look into the context. So he said, Chapamanaya Saumitre, O son of Sumitra. Why did he have to call Lakshmana as Sumitra's son? Because your mother has advised you, Ramam Dasharatham Viddhi Mam Viddhi Janakatmajam Ayodhyam Atavim Viddhi Gachata Tayata Sukam. My dear son, from today onwards, Rama is your father, Sita is your mother. The place where you reside shall be Ayodhya. Listen to what he says. Rame Pramadam Ma Karishihi. Listen to what Rama says. So dear Lakshmana, don't even think of disobeying me. Your son of Sumitra, go get it. Chapam Anaya Saumitre. So Chapam Anaya, go get my bow and the quiver of arrows. What did he mean? The commentator says that he meant this ocean is not budging. In Tamil it is better to say, even Valaya Villai. என் வளைந்த வில்லை வைத்து இவனுக்கு கூறுகிறேன். So he is not budging. So I shall show him his place with the bow that has budged. So Lakshmana is a bit worried. Chapamanaya Saumitre Sharamschashi Vishopamam Sagaram Soshaishyami Padbhyam Yantif Plavangamaha. Then if I dry up the oceans here, probably I don't have to worry about constructing a bridge, then checking if which of the monkeys can swim and those cannot. I can just walk them over through the dry oceanic beds and reach Lanka. Well, while Rama took the arrow from his quiver and was about to fit into the bow and was about to release it, it seems the Samudra Raja came. Trahimam, Trahimam. Samudra Raja said, see, at one point in time you are also my son-in-law, because his daughter is Lakshmi. Lakshmi Kshira Samudra Raja Tanayam Sriranga Dhameshwarim. So you have been my son-in-law. How can I go with empty hands? I have to buy some gifts for you. So I was just looking at my oceanic bed to check which of the Titanics have collapsed, so that I can take some sapphires and diamonds from it, string it together and bring a beautiful gift to you. There is a beautiful verse in Sri Rangaraja's Tavam by a great Acharya come poet called Parashara Bhatta. He says how river Kaveri, often in Sanatana Dharma, though we see them as pieces of nature, we also personify them as a deity. The rivers are especially treated as deities. Ganga Devi, Yamuna Devi. Now you may be checking where is the Devi inside the H2O there. But this is how we see nature as. So Kaveri, she begins from a mountain called Kutakachalam. What is Kutakachalam? Kodagu is called Kutakachalam in Sanskritam. Narayana Bhattadri uses this name in Narayaniyam. So when Kaveri begins from Kutakachalam, it seems she is excited about meeting her daughter Ranganayaki and her son-in-law Ranganatha in Srirangam. It's quite a distance. So she has to travel from the mountains of Kutakachalam to Srirangam. So on the way, in her sojourn to Srirangam, it seems the trees of Chandana, sandalwood that have been hanging, those branches fall into her waters and they rub against each other and the sandal paste comes into the waters, adding good flavor and fragrance. And then there are devotees who want their wishes to get fulfilled, and they throw some pockets of bunches of diamonds and emeralds and rubies. Well, do people really do that? You know, there is an inscription in the Bazaar street of Hampi, which was the erstwhile capital of the Vijayanagara dynasty from 1336 till about the mid of the 17th century. There is an inscription. After 5 p.m. in the evening in the Bazaar street, the merchants used to come and sell diamonds in packets to the commoners. So diamonds and emeralds and sapphires and even opals and amethyst was thrown into the water. So she would carry the fragrance of sandal and all these precious gems to present them to her daughter and her son-in-law in Srirangam. So as she comes running from Kutakachalam, the waters of Kaveri come, then she jumps at one place which is called Hogganekkal. Then she jumps at another place, Shivana Samudram. These are all places that gives her excitement. And as she crosses Erode and Karur and Mohanur, and as she comes near Tiruchirappalli, she spots Seshapeetham where her son-in-law is reclining with her daughter Ranganayaki. So as she comes closer to Srirangam, she wants to embrace the both of them. So she distributes herself as the northern Kaveri and the southern Kaveri and makes that land an islet in the fresh waters. Dugdabhir Janako Jananyahamiyam Srireva Putri Varaha Srirangeshwarameda Darhamya Kim Kuruva Miti Vakula Chanchamara Chandra Chandana Mahamanikya Muktotkaran Kaveri Lari Karair Vidhadadi Devasahaiva Shriya. So Kaveri becomes the mother, Oceanic King Varunalayam becomes the father, daughter is Mahalakshmi, who is Sita. So Narayana as Rama is the son-in-law. So the Oceanic King says, I took little time to bring some gifts for you. Do you get Kim Kopa Moolam Manujendra Putra? By then my son-in-law has gotten angry. So Rama said, did you think that I was getting angry at you? Samayaniki Rangeshudu Sadganga Jana Kudu Sankita Sampradaya Kudu Samaya Nikita Matala Vanitara Sada Sukkajeyu Chunno Brukajese Sukkajeyu Chunne Brukajese. So people will get so very melted by the way he talks. That is when it seems Samudra Raja said that there are certain tribes that are polluting some of the rivers that come into me in the northwestern part of this land. So could you please take care of them? That is when Rama, now he was looking south. In the same place he turned northwest and shot the same arrow towards that place. It is believed that the efficacy of the Astram was so much so that it dried up those places so that the demons won't have an opportunity to throw pollutants into the river. That place which became dry, some researchers say it became Marukantaram, which is the desert called Thar in the northwest of India. So this is where Kuresha, one of the other acharyas, wonders. You were acting as if there was no way for you but to construct the bridge, take all the monkeys to Lanka, which is just 100 yojanas away. You were acting as if you were super worried. But from the same place, you shot a missile which was 2000 miles away and created a Marukantam. You could have done the same with Lanka. I could have concluded the discourse yesterday. I wouldn't need the 9th day at all. Tvam dakshinasya nivasan udadhestatepi dhurantarottara payodhi mahantaripe daityan nijaikasha sharaparayan kimetam lankam sthitotra kurushe nakila smabhasma, says Kuresha. Now, the bridge had to be constructed. That is when Varunalaya, the Oceanic King, said, see, you have a great architect in place. There is this Vishwakarma's Aparavataram called Nala. Now Nala is such a good architect, he would know what materials are required to be filled to get a very, very strong bridge. Use him as the architect. Use Neela, Jambavan as supervisors and get a few people who can do the real work. monkey said, we will do all of it, and they started bringing huge stones. So this distance has been described in Ramayana as Shatayojana Vistirnam, 100 yojanas in length. A yojana, as per some of the researchers, could be 8 miles. So 100 into 8 is 800 miles. The first, because the distance between Bharata's tip in Tirupullani and Lanka, which is near Gulf of Mannar, is not 100 yojanas, which is 800 miles today, it is 35 kilometers. So the first theory is, probably he would have measured from Bharata Desham to where Sita had stayed, which is Nuvarailia, which could be much, it is not 35 kilometers, it could be more than 800, 900 kilometers. That is one theory. Second, due to the tectonic plates which keep changing, the landmass could have moved from the south to the southeast of India. This is the second theory. Third, the calculation that yojana itself is 8 miles could be flawed. Fourth, now what Valmiki says is the bridge that was constructed was 100 yojanas in length, 10 yojanas wide, which is 100 is to 10, which is 10 is to 1. In reality today, the Setu is 35 kilometers in length and 3.5 kilometers wide, which is 35 is to 3.5, it still makes it 10 is to 1. So the ratio is the same, is what some scholars opine. Well, the Setu was constructed. So the first day, 14 yojanas of the Setu were constructed. Second day, good improvement, 20 yojanas. Third day, 21. Fourth day, 22. Fifth day, 23 yojanas were constructed. Now, there is again a theory that they used stones that were of floating nature and they constructed the bridge. Valmiki doesn't make a mention of it. In turn, he tells that trees were chopped and were put over the oceanic ridge, 2 layers of trees, and over which large boulders were placed till they could rise above the waters. Now, this is what the Setu is. Was this Setu in vogue later? Yes. In Sri Mahabharatam, Sahadeva, the last of the Pandavas, goes with his eldest brother Bhima's son Ghatotkacha. Ghatotkacha belonged to the clan of the Rakshasas called Hidimba. Their distant relatives were in Lanka. Now don't ask me which distant relative. Distant, no? So they were there in Lanka. So he reaches the tip of Bharatam, and that is when he tells, do not worry Sahadeva, you get back to Hastinapuram. I shall walk on the Setu constructed by Rama, meet my relatives and come back. So even during the Mahabharata times, it was in use. So how do we place the time levels? As per the Yuga calculation, we have 43,20,000 years in one Chatur Yuga, thereby making one portion of the 10 parts of this, which is 4,32,000 years in the Kali Yuga and twice in the Dwaparam. But if we look at Yuga through Gautama's Nyaya Sutra, it need not mean so many years, it could mean a certain scale. I did mention about Dasharatha's lifespan on day 1. 60,000 years means he might have ruled for 60 years. So 1 year of his regime is equivalent to 1,000 years of a normal king. So thereby from this we can conclude through research scholars and historians who state that Mahabharata, Ramayana happened around the 5000 to 5500 BC and Mahabharata between 3000 and 3200 BC based on Aihole inscription. So between 5000 and 3000 BC this bridge was still in use. Later it is said around 1400 BC there was a tsunami which destroyed parts of the Setu and some parts of it got submerged. Around till about 1965 there was an island, a peninsular part of the tip of India called Dhanushkoti where people still lived. So I know of a very age-old couple whom I used to interact with, and they have stayed in Dhanushkoti for over 25 years until the town was ravished by the floods and the hurricanes, so they had to move upwards. So that lady, who's a very well learned lady, she used to tell me to perform Shraddham. It seems they used to take a boat from Dhanushkoti and the boatman used to take them to the middle of the ocean. and then used to say, get down. They used to get down, and till their knee, the waters used to reach because they were standing on Setu. And then they would perform Shraddham on the Setu and come back. So it was there in practice till about 1964, 1965. Now, Dashayojana Vistirnam Shatayojana Mayatam Dadushur Devagandharva Nalasetum Sudushkaram. So Nalasetu was constructed. 2200 years back, roughly before the Gupta period and around the Maurya period, we have to go to 2nd century BC. There was a work in Prakritam. We have heard of Sanskritam, which is a perfected language. See, the language, you may call it arrogance, but you know what Sanskritam means? That which can't get any more perfect. Kritam means perfect. Sanskritam, I can't get any more perfect. I am perfect. This is how the language calls itself. So because the language had so many aphorisms and grammar, it was not very easy for the commoners to speak this language. So the commoners developed a language, created a language which could be slightly flexible and not that hard on the tongue. It was called Prakritam. So I can cite one verse from my very favorite Acharya Vedanta Deshika, who says, Amma Gurunu Machuya Jiya Siya Sannami Laddapa Itto Padivaya Paramatto Varesi Apandita Attana Mammanam. This is Prakritam. So if you see, look at the words, it doesn't Jada Kirana Shakala Dhara Jatila Natapati Makuta Tatana Pattu Vibuddha Saridati. It is an Amma Guruna Machuya Jiya Siya Sannami Laddapa Itto Padivaya Paramatto. So this is Prakritam. So there was a poet in the Maharashtra region. Any Marathi speaking Astikas here? Very good. So you're from the land of a great poet called Pravarasena. Pravarasena wrote a 2500 versed poem in Prakritam 2200 years back on how the Setu was constructed. It is called Setu Bandhana Kavyam. Just this topic, 2500 verses, how the Setu was constructed. So here I'll just read one or two verses from that particular Kavyam. Arambhante sayaloti avasamo dattu amminallavahe hoyi duhaya samante sochiya anno punno visamiddo. This is Prakritam. So Pali is also very similar what the Buddhists use. Attihi bikko akadayam nattuyetasya jantuno sattam manasa sunnaratanam sampajjayi. This is Pali. What I cited is Prakritam. Now, Vedanta Deshika says, the bridge was constructed between Bharatadesham and Lanka. So the oceanic waters were divided because of the bridge, right? So he says Simantonta. Simantonta means we have a ritual for the women when they turn pregnant, and during the 7th, 8th month juncture, there is a ritual called Simantonayanam, which is the first time the woman's hair is shown a partition. You can see the scalp at that point in time. So until then, it was a custom that women combed this way. Only on the Simantonayanam onwards, her hair parts. So you can see the scalp. Since this process of separating the hair and showing the scalp is called Simantam. So Simantita Sima Samudra, says Vedanta Deshika. It seems Rama did not do Simantam to Sita first. He did it to the oceanic waters. He constructed the bridge and parted the waters so the bridge looked like a Simantam on Samudra Raja, he says. Now, as Rama constructed this, all the monkeys were excited. For them it was visiting a foreign country for the first time without a passport. So, and trust me, there was no wall built there. So they started walking from Bharatadesham. They were excited. And imagine, with humans involved in a overbridge project, projects take more time than what is expected. With monkeys as his engineers and workers, he constructed before the stipulated time. So we need to think about whom to use in infrastructure projects. So now when the monkeys started walking towards Lanka, Bhattadri Narayaniyam summarizes this portion. Tvam Sugrivangadadi Prabalagapi Chamucha Chakra Vikranta Bhumi Chakro Bhikramya Parijaladhinishi Charendra Nuja Shri Shriyamana Tat Proktam Shatruvartam Rahasini Shamayan Prarthana Parthayosha Prasta Gnaye Stratejas Strata Dudita Gira Labdhavan Madhyamargam. Now, Ravana, understanding this, he sent one spy so that he could spot what is happening in Rama's army. His name was Shuka. Shuka came, and that very moment Vibhishana was able to recognize this is not one amongst the monkey people. He caught Shuka and took him to Rama. So Shuka said, sorry sir, I came as a spy. I was asked to do this job. Rama said, please stay here, count the number of people, go tell what all weapons we have to Ravana, I have no problem. So then Shuka went, and then Vibhishana, he sent his 4 friends to check how prepared is Rama's army. Now Sugriva and the others, the important people in Rama's army, stood at the top of a mountain. And on the other side was Ravana, who was standing on a mountain which was lesser, of lesser height. So Sugriva jumped from this mountain to that mountain, started pinching, scratching, biting Ravana, took his crown and came back. He was a monkey after all, right? Now he brought that crown, but you'll be surprised. You know what is Sugriva referred to in the commentaries? When commentaries take place, there should be a name. He should be called Sugriva, right? He's called Maharaja. So in the traditional commentary patterns, if we refer Maharaja arrived, you may think it is the king. No, it is Sugriva. At least people in the 60s and 70s can be reminded of a mixer when I say Maharaja. But this Maharaja came. He was called Sugriva. Now, Sugriva Maharaja, the moment he brought that crown, Rama said, do you think you have done something remarkable, Sugriva? What if Ravana had killed you? Then I wouldn't be elated even after winning over Sita, because you're my friend. I would have lost you. Think before you do anything, Sugriva. So that is when, after Rama told all this, the army gets ready for the battle. Indrajit, Ravana dispatches his very valorous son called as Indrajit on the battle day. Indrajit releases Astram. So there are 2 words that you may come across in our scriptures. One is Shastram and second is Astram. Shastram is any object is a Shastram. Even mic can become a Shastram in parliament. So this is a Shastram. But if I inject a particular deity's mantram and release it, it becomes an Astram. So Shastram plus mantram is equal to Astram. So if I use an arrow and use Agneya mantram into it, it becomes Agneyastram, Varunastram, Pashupatastram, Brahmastram. These were the astras used. In Sri Mahabharatam, there is a famous astram that we come across, which is Nagastram. If you remember Sri Mahabharatam, on the day Karna fights, because Karna couldn't fight on the battlefield till Bhishma fought. There was a vow, till Bhishma is the commander-in-chief, I will not fight. So the moment Bhishma was put on the bed of arrows, Karna comes into foray, and then Drona also lost his life to Drishtadyumna. Then comes Karna Parva. So when Karna comes and fights, he had promised Kunti that he will not kill any of his brothers or her children, but will fight Arjuna. So at that point in time, Shakuni invokes a particular snake which had rivalry with Arjuna. He was called Takshaka. Because when the cap, is it very confusing? You should get used to it. All these characters, then where will I be? Every character, if I keep giving abbreviations and bibliography, then the Upanyasam will not go forward. So there is an assumption that you are all people who can clear the doubts of Valmiki and Vyasa if they have doubts. So, when a part of Kuru Bhumi was given to the Pandavas, it was called Kandava Prastham. So that had forest infested with many snakes. That is when Krishna and Arjuna go around the Kandava Prastham. During that expedition, Takshaka goes away. He is settled there with his family. He gets really mad at Arjuna. So he is bearing a rivalry on Arjuna. So Shakuni, who knows this, how intelligent Shakuni is, he must be reading the newspaper and everything thoroughly. He invokes Takshaka and says, Takshaka, you fit yourself into the astram of Karna and let you be released on Arjuna. That is when Krishna gives a lot of pressure to his chariot, thereby putting the chariot 1 foot down. Thereby the astram which was aimed at Arjuna hits his crown and goes away. There is a saying in Tamil, Talaikku vandadu talapagoda pochu. So, now look in Sri Mahabharatam, this Takshaka who is now again defeated, he wanted to attack Arjuna but he couldn't. He bears this rivalry till Arjuna's grandson Parikshit comes and he kills him. So, snakes were used. It is believed in the literature, I don't know in reality, I am no zoologist. So, it is believed that snakes too have elephant-like memory. So, they can remember. So, snakes were fit in the astram, in the shastram, and those became Naga astram, and Indrajit released them on Rama and Lakshmana. Imagine there was a viper, cobra, whatever snakes that we all know from National Geographic. This is our exposure. Now, this astram came and attacked Rama and Lakshmana, and those snakes started coiling around the bodies of Rama and Lakshmana. That is when Garuda Vahana Pandita, he was a well-known medical practitioner in Lanka, and Vibhishana had his contact number. See, Vibhishana is there with them, right? So, Sri Lanka's SIM works there. So, he immediately texted Garuda Vahana and said, you come here and advise what we should be doing. Then he started writing one prescription, which alone he can understand. So, he said, I want this chlorophytum, burivilianum, sandhani, vishalyakarani. By the time he could give the prescription, there was a sound that everybody could hear. That was that of Garuda. Garuda started coming to this battlefield. Vedanta Deshika beautifully describes the movement of Garuda through one of his very well-known smaller compositions in a very peculiar poetic format called Dandakam. Garudamakhila Veda Nidadhirudam Dvishatpida Notkantita Kuntha Vaikuntha Piti Kritaskandamide Svanida Gatifprita Rudra Sukirti Sanabhoga Gadhopa Gudas Puratkantaka Brata Veda Vyatha Vepamana Dvijihwadi Pakalpa Vishvaryamana Spatavatika Ratna Rochis Chataraji Nirajitam Kanti Kalloli Nirajitam Jaya Garuda Suparna Darvi Karahara Devadi Pahara Harin Divaukaspati Kshipta Damboli Dhara Kina Kalpa Kalpanta Vatula Kalpodayanalpa Vira Dinodya Chamatkara Daityari Daitya Dvajaroha Nirdhari Totkarsha Sankarshanatman Garutman Marutpanchakadisha Satyadi Murtena Kaschitna Samaste Punaste Namaste Namaha Namaidamajahatsa Paryaya Paryaya Niryata Paksha Nilasphala No Dvela Padodi Vici Chapeta Hatagada Patala Bankara Samgrudha Nagendra Pida Srini Bhava Bhasvanatha Shrena Ye Chanda Tundaya Nrutyak Bhujanga Pruve Vajrine Damshtraya Tubhya Madhyatma Vidya Videya Videya Bhavadasya Mapada Yeta Dayeta Shami Manuranugada Pakshi Vatras Purattara Kastava Kaschit Chitrabhanu Priyashekharastrayatam Nastrivarga Pavargas Prasudif Paravyomadaman Vanadveshidarpad Varajvalakilya Pratignyavatirna Sthiram Tattva Buddhim Param Bhakti Renum Jagan Mulakande Mukunde Mahananda Dotrim Ahinam Ahinam Ahinantaka. He says, how the Garuda flies. If you look at Vedanta Deshika's poem called Paduka Sahasram, there is a poetic format called Garuda Gati Bandham. It traces the pattern in which a Garuda flies. He composes a shloka. It's called Garuda Gati Bandham. So there is a ratio between each of the words, how they appear. Now, as Garuda came to the spot, these snakes could sense the presence of Garuda and they started uncoiling from the bodies and they started going into the holes of the ground. Well, after Garuda came and then the snakes went and then Rama got up, he looked at Garuda and said, "Sir, may I know who you are?" Garuda had the shock of his life. "I have been carrying you all this long and you're asking, Mundram Piraya, who are you? Yarni? You're asking? Huh? You're asking who you are?" Now, my Pracharya, my Acharya's Acharya, the Acharya who taught me Sri Bhashyam, Karunakaracharya Swami's father, whose your teacher's teacher is called Pracharya. So my Pracharya was a great poet. He was an Ashu Kavi called Srinidhi. Srinidhi Swami in one of his poems states, when Garuda came and the Lord asked who you are, he must not be fumbling, he should have an answer, right? So he creates an imaginary conversation and a very convincing answer what Garuda would have given to Rama. He says, Garuda was witnessing all that was happening in the battlefield of Lanka between Rama's army and that of Ravana, who was succeeded by his son Indrajit. So Garuda was very, very troubled to see his master suffering so much. He thought he was helpless because the Lord chose that I shall be a human, right? If I am a human, suddenly Garuda, suppose imagine we are somewhere caught in the forest, there is one snake, then suddenly Garuda comes with Shankam, Chakram there. So then it proves that we are no normal creature, right? So he did not want to take away from Rama's vow of pledge that he is a normal human being. So he was a lot troubled. That time, he was in 302 in Vaikuntham. In 301 was another bird which had obtained moksha. That was Jatayu. Jatayu had come to Vaikuntham. So while seeing Garuda suffer, Jatayu couldn't take it. He went and told Garuda, you go. No, if I go, Rama will get angry. Why will he get angry? He will say that I am a normal human being. Why did you come and break this? I am a normal human being. Garuda, you shouldn't be coming here. Well, in case he asks you this, then tell him, hey Rama, if you are a normal human being, how did you give moksham to Jatayu in 301? He will keep quiet. So he said, so this is a beautiful imaginary shloka that my Acharya constructed. Vego dvela suvela kimidamiti mito mantrito vanarendraihi maya manushya lilam abhinayati haro labdha seva visheshaha vaidehi karnapurastabaka surabhina yassamasleshi doshna trishna pariplavanam sabhavatu garudaha dukkhavarif plavonaha. Now Ravana, who realized that Rama had come back to consciousness because of Garuda's intervention, comes back to the battlefield and he thinks the only way to bring down the morale of Rama was to either cause injury or kill Lakshmana. Tama patanti bharadanu jagana baner hutagnikalpaihi tathapi sa tasya vivesha shaktir bhujantaram dasharathe vishalam sa shakti ma shakti samahatas sanjajwala bhumau raghupraviraha. He wanted to attack Lakshmana. So as he wanted to attack Lakshmana, at that point in time, after his astram struck Lakshmana and Lakshmana swooned on the ground, Ravana wanted to come, lift Lakshmana, take him to some unknown place, thereby causing some insecurity in Rama. As Ravana comes and tries lifting Lakshmana, he is not able to What's so surprising in this, sir? He is the one who once tried lifting Kailasha Parvatam, and he is not able to lift Lakshmana. And witnessing that Ravana was trying to lift Lakshmana, Hanuman comes, gives him a blow and lifts Lakshmana just like how you would lift a cotton candy and runs away. So the commentator wonders why the one who tried and who did lift Kailasha Parvatam couldn't lift a Lakshmana. Because his mind and thoughts were completely infested with the wrong kamam for Sita. When your mind is filled with evil thoughts, your body will never cooperate with you, which Hanuman did not have, and so Lakshmana felt like a cotton candy and he took him away. Now, Lakshmana comes back to consciousness, and then he tries aiming Astram at Ravana, and Ravana is defeated very badly. He goes back home. That is when he sits in solitude and starts thinking of all the curses that were pronounced upon him. So he remembers a king of Anaranya of Ayodhya who had said that one descendant of him shall be killing Ravana. He was reminded of the last lady whom he had physically assaulted called Vedavati, who had cursed that there will be a lady who shall be the Karanam for his death. Then he was reminded of Parvati, Umam, Haimavati, Harshapam, that he shall be killed. He was reminded of the curse uttered by Nandi that the monkeys whom he had insulted shall be a part of the army to decimate him. He was reminded of the curse uttered. He had too many curses on his head. And he was reminded of all of this today. As soon as he was reminded that day, the next day Yuddham, there is a list, there are about 1500 shlokas, verses describing who killed whom, who fought with whom. Rama kills Kumbhakarna, Angada kills Narantaka, Hanuman kills Devantaka, Neela kills Mahodara, Rishabha kills Mahaparshva, Lakshmana kills Adhikaya. So all this happened, and again Indrajit comes. He's the final trump card that Ravana will use. Oh, trump card so he is the last card that was used, and so Indrajit comes and aims the Nagastram again, and all these people swoon on the ground. That is when Garuda Pandita said, last time I started writing the prescription by which Garuda had come, let me finish my prescription. And as he finished, he said, I need 4 kinds of herbs. Mrita Sanjeevani, Vishalyakarani, Suvarnakarani, Sandhani. These are the 4 herbs, the leaves of these herbs that I require. He told this, Garuda Pandita told this to Hanuman. Hanuman had no connection with science. And he had never gotten inside a vegetable market to understand what are the different kinds of leaves that can be cooked and can be consumed. I'm sure you'll be getting a lot of the green leaves here that you can cook. Kannadadalli helo, Kannadavaru idaralva illi soppu anta heluttevu, and Tamil keerai nu solvom. And there are many varieties of those leaves. I don't know how many varieties you get here. You've got Polangani, you've got Sirukirai, Molakirai, Pasalakirai, Pulichakirai. You've got at least 15-20 varieties. In Bangalore, there's a separate variety called Sabbaki. So you've got so many varieties. And they have a binomial nomenclature, right? So chlorophytum, borivilianum, all these names is Garuda Vahana Pandita is telling Hanuman. Hanuman was in the, well, where I studied Pilani, we used to call something that doesn't reach you called OHT. It was overhead transmission. So all these botanical names, Hanuman couldn't take it. So he said, okay, because it was emergency. And then he asked, sir, where can I get it? Can I go to one of the supermarkets in Lanka? Or at least close by Tamil Nadu is fine. I know T Nagar quite well. I will not get into Ranganathan Street. I'll somehow spot this and bring this for you. Garuda Vahana Pandita said, these leaves grow in a very different climatic condition. Hanuman, you have to cross the oceanic waters, the land of Dravida, the Tamil Nadu, then Andhra, then Telangana, then Odisha, then Chhattisgarh, then Uttar Pradesh, then Nepal, and get into Tibet. One China, right? So I don't know, Tibet, and in Tibet next to Kailasham there will be a small hillock called Rishabham, and between this will be a smaller hill called Sanjeevani, and in that Sanjeevani hill these herbs will be there. Next morning the battle has to begin. He doesn't have a ticket. Hanuman started jumping boulder after boulder, cliff after cliff. He just started jumping. There was no time. After all the efforts he took, he went to the offshoot of the Himalayas, closer to Kailasha Parvatam. There the hillock was filled with leaves, and he forgot what leaves Garuda Pandita had mentioned. So if you are new to cooking, be it your son or daughter, tur dal, urad dal, all dal will look the same. Ekameva advitiyam. They will become advaitis at that point in time. Every dal will look the same. So what to do? Hanuman thought, if he he does a permutation and say, okay, I'll take this, I'll make some choices, some random sampling, I'll take 4 and then go there. If Pandita says, not this, go get that number 3, he has to fly back. But the easiest way is to carry that entire piece of land that has all of it, and he brought it. Like how a child wouldn't want to get into this probability at all and will carry one box full of these spices. It is called Anjarai Petti in Tamil. So he carried that entire hillock and came all this way. It is believed in the Sthala Puranam that a small portion of that hill fell on the way. Since this hill had all the medicinal plants, it was called Aushadhagiri, and that Aushadhagiri which fell off this mountain is found opposite the shrine of Devanatha in Tiruvahindrapuram near Kadalur in Tamil Nadu, and that is where the Lord who bestows quintessential knowledge called Hayagriva resides. So it is called Aushadhagiri. Now, Hanuman goes, he brings that particular hill, and as the smell of those plants reach the noses of these people who have felt unconscious, they all gain back consciousness, and then that was squeezed, and then the medicinal herb was taken. And what happened to the hill? Hanuman went and placed it back in the same place. What is the moral? When we take something from in our house, we have to keep it back in the same place. See, simple moral, right? Hanuman doesn't give us high philosophy, simple things. You take something out of its original place, have the decency to go and keep it back in the same place. Like who did? Hanuman did. I am not telling. Hanuman did this. Now, Ravana, then the next day he comes and fights with Rama. Then as he fights with Rama loses his chariot. In those days, besides being an archer, you need to have other weapons as well. You need to store a mace, a spear, all that in the chariot. Chariot was meant to be a storehouse, and it would also lead you to the place where you are fighting. So as he was having a chariot and the chariot was destroyed, remember, there were certain tactics in which you could win over the opposite person. You either kill his charioteer, the horses, cause damage to the chariot. Either of the 3 scenarios, the chariot won't go forward because the charioteer is dead. If the charioteer is not dead and the horses are dead, it is of no use again. If the chariot itself is not there, it is all the more tough. That is why in Mahabharatam, Krishna was related to the Pandavas because, of course, his mother, his father, and Pandava's mother, they were siblings. The other relationship was Krishna's own sister Subhadra was married to Arjuna. Thereby Arjuna is the son-in-law of the house. So when the necessity came, he was duty bound to help Arjuna. Krishna's son was married to Duryodhana's daughter. So Duryodhana's daughter was Lakshmana Akarantam, Strilinga Vachakam, who was married to Krishna and Jambavati's son Shamba. So that is why Shakuni tells, when one son-in-law takes help, your daughter is the daughter-in-law of Krishna, you go take help. So that is when you have the Drishyam of Mahabharatam, where Duryodhana comes and sits near Krishna's head and Arjuna sits near Krishna's feet, and then he asks, what do you want? He lays his big regiment, huge army called Narayani on one side, and he says, I will be on the other side, you can choose. And that is when Arjuna says, being the younger one, he is given the choice first. He says, I want Narayana. Duryodhana was so happy. Oh, that has such a big army. Okay, I will take the army. And he goes back to his uncle and says, yes, deal done. The army is with us. Shakuni asked, where is Krishna? Krishna is on Arjuna's side. You fool. You have left Krishna on the other side. And what will you do with the army? Now you go and ask him again. That you need, there is a small appendix that I left. Put one star there. You know, the sale you get star. One like Vamana Avataram. And there you see up to 50%. That up to will be Vamana. 50 will be Trivikrama. But that up to will not be visible to our eyes. Now, he says, you go and ask Krishna that he should not deploy any weapon of his. He goes and says, Krishna, you should not be using any weapon. Krishna says, okay, deal done. Now Shakuni thinks, wow, this is a good deal. Krishna cannot use any weapon because a person who doesn't have to use a weapon, what use will he be of in the battlefield? Why should he first of all come to a battlefield? See, suppose there is a yuddham. The only thing that I can remember is Kargil. The Kargil yuddham happening. I go there. I want to just see what is happening. No, they won't allow. I can't fight. I don't know how to fight. I don't have any weapons. Why will they allow me? So Arjuna said, Krishna, then how can you participate? Give your charioteer casual leave for 18 days. Let your driver go on leave. I will come in his position. A charioteer doesn't require weapons. I will do that. So to protect the horses and the Rathi, Krishna became the Sarathi. He sat in the middle to protect. So to protect the Ratham, the horses and the chariot is very, very important in a Yuddha Bhumi. So Rama was there on a chariot, the chariot broke. So Rama couldn't literally fight because Ravana is fighting at a certain height. So you need the similar height to fight him. Where will he keep his weapons? That is when Rama suddenly found that his height was, he was going up. When he saw down, Hanuman was lifting him. He said, you fight now. I will be your chariot. You start fighting. All the arrows that emanated from Ravana's bow didn't reach Rama. Rama thought, where is he? Bad archer. Where is it going? He looked left, right, top, nowhere. When he looked down, all the arrows were struck or aimed at Hanuman. Why? This man, this monkey has made us go to the IMF for the 6 billion crore package. He destroyed Lanka, right? He burnt Lanka. So Lanka had to go on begging bowl to the IMF in those days, give me money. So this monkey was the root cause. This Hanuman was the root cause. So Ravana wanted to teach Hanuman a lesson. Rama all this while was just a normal archer. He couldn't withstand what was meted to his most favorite of all, who was Hanuman. That is when he started fighting. You know, Andal, a mystic poetess in the Tamil tradition, who is believed to have lived by the historians between the 5th and the 7th centuries AD, around 1500 years back, in a small hamlet today known for making Palkova, which was called Sri Villiputtur. So, she was madly in love with Krishna. She would describe only Krishna's pastimes in her literature. But at one point in time, she says, I have fallen in love with Rama. People were wondering, Shurpanaka fell in love, you know what happened to Shurpanaka? Take care of your nose and ears. Why are you falling in love with Rama? What do you like in Rama? She says, I love his anger. Shinattinal tennilangai komanai chetra manathu kiniyanai padavum ni vaithiravai. The one who has kind of enamored me through his anger is Rama. There is one person called Dhanush in India. He has given one dialogue in Tamil. Paatha pudikadu. Paaka paaka pudikku. So, why do you love Rama? Because I love because of his anger. Will somebody tell he gets angry, I love him? Right. Why? Because a person is referred to as Drabe. Many of you will be reciting Sri Rudram. It is called Shatarudriyam in Yajurvedam. Drabe andhasaspade daridran neelalohita. What does Drabe mean? One commentator says, the one who knows when to get angry, how to get angry, and how to control that anger. 3 aspects should be there. When to get angry. You should not get angry for small things. Nobody will respect that anger. You should have a valid reason. And there should be a style in which you get anger. Style. And you should know how to control that anger. Some people say, if I get angry, I don't know what I will do. Then you are not fit to get angry. When you do not know what to do, then why do you get angry? So you should know how to control your anger. The one who does that is called drape. Drape andhasaspade daridran neelalohita, tells Vedam. So Rama is also called as Rudra in Sanskritam. That is why Rudram can be recited towards Paramashiva, Lord Shiva, towards Narasimha and Rama. Yadaishu Shivatama Shivam Bhabhuvate Dhanuhu. He carries the Kodandam, like how Shiva carries Pinaki. So Rama, generally a very seasoned, cultured, civilized person, got angry at that point in time. What was the reason? Because his favorite devotee was harmed. So there was a reason, and he had anger in a style. He could hit back through arrows. Can we do?